What's the buzz? Tell me what's happening. What's the buzz? When do we the stories from communists, so we have to change the mood. Although, of course, being young, wild at heart, we did enjoy that period of darkness of North Korean atmosphere. What? As the madness, as we have the king in the madness of King George, utter frequently. What? I recommend the film. One. We also watched the films. Marius, the hunter, would bring them, and I should get to the point where I'm talking characters, long characters. Maybe in the next few days. Let's try and see if we can finish the Poena incident today, and maybe plunge into Marius and his contributions, and his idiosyncrasies, and his mischief, and the conflict we're in right now. We talked maybe 1 year ago, after 10 years of silence, or more, 20. And we came to politics, and apparently he has some friends that are amenable to the Red Plague, as they were called, a party that comes from the communist regime. The second generation, the former nomenclatura, the young fellows took power, took style, privileges, terminal, idiotic, incompetent management, and so on, and then became allies with the party I support. So in that I'm also foolish. I'm playing against myself. And anyway, we quarreled, so maybe we'll never talk again. But Poena and the Commie. So in Poena, I was talking with these kids from Britain in the evening, with one of them at that point, and then along the way on other tours for the country, 2 others, I'd say, got really intimate. Coitus. But that's for a bit later. We will have Atlanta, the Olympics, but that's not for you, for another generation of viewers. I mean, by that time we'll reach this in 2030 with net zero emissions. So it will be that, or I'm thinking maybe for aliens. Aliens would be interested in that. Maybe they find this to their taste, or there's the Idiocracy, that comedy where they look at science fiction. In the future, there will be Trump voters. They will vote for people as intelligent as the very stable genius, as he calls himself, the chosen one for the evangelicals and others. In other words, idiots. So idiots would think this video quite nice, quite clever, which is not the case now. I mean, this audience of today is selective and good and wisely gives me a lot of dislikes. So what can I'm peddling this for the future, for idiocracy. And so I must have been overheard by my own people, my spies or what have you. And That's one thing. The second thing would be, my guess was that this Gerasim fellow saw me at Yori's at the dinner and didn't like the fact that I was much younger, 20 years younger than he was. I'm just having a good time, being in a good mood and in a good connection with people, with girls, women, and he wasn't. Envious. Made a call, just kick this guy out. Fact is, I was saying, early in the morning or at night, 4 o'clock or some a.m., the boss from Bucharest says, don't ask me why, but you have to come back. And then they follow 2, 3, 4 days of torture, trauma, adversity. This is when I should have had the marvelous book, The How of Happiness, Sonia Lubomirsky. She speaks of 12 rules for happiness. There's a test, you should read the book. There's a test and you find 4, so the 12 that fit you well. And one of them would have a strategy to cope with adversity and trauma, forgiveness, things like that, so that when this happens, you do not what I did, but just go out, climb the mountain, take the snow in. What I did was plunge into a sort of depression, contemplate prison, jail, and being shot by firing squad, whatever they use. And as again, I hesitated because I was thinking there's 50 psychology classics, and in one of them, on becoming a person, might be. I was trying to figure out which one of the 50 classics was talking of the origin of everyday moods. There were few on various aspects, and they share some similarities. And it's this idea that our thoughts determine our emotions. Depression, and we think, oh, how bad, how could I do this, and how silly I am, or stupid, or what a fool I've been to get this fellow here. And now I'm trapped. I have to spend almost all day long with them and so on. And then from this, you feel low. You feel do nothing, and then you just live out and become a victim, learn it. Hopelessness would be a term used by Martin Seligman. He has the learned optimism, the opposite of this, of course, but he talks of the phenomena we observed in tests with animals, with dogs, alas. Dogs that have some pain inflicted to them, they don't have a way out, so they become hopeless and they don't go out even when they have the possibility, but they're used with the old regime. So for the next days, as I said, I kept whining. I kept thinking, oh my God, this is the about the situation. If she called at that time and then she didn't say anything, what could it be? It can only be terrible. Because otherwise I would say, okay, you missed a figure in there, you paid the wrong bill. I didn't pay the bill, so I keep forgetting. It was the woman. And what a huge windfall she would have from that. We did this in restaurants when we paid on tours and things like that. We would take a cut. I mean, there would be, let's say, bread rolls on the table, which are not eaten. Dessert planned, which would be we knew beforehand or was served in the first day that this is not, but they leave 90% of it on the table. So then instead of having 3 pancakes, you just put 1 or 2. And the one which is not on the table, but it's in the plan, you split, so to say, with a head waiter, as the case might be. Not always possible. Coming back, so she didn't mention any mistake, what could she say? You haven't reached the hospital with that client. He was found dead. And in putrefaction. On the side of the road. So you're in for manslaughter, accidental manslaughter. Anyway, no, it could be something to be determined. I mean, if they found him dead, and maybe it was intentional, premeditated, first degree murder. So nothing of the kind. It must be something from that. It must be something political, so bloody secretive with the situation, and serious that. And I had those days to boil in my own juices and soup and thoughts, because for one thing, I was supposed to finish, to give the. Then it wasn't a limit, fortunately, so there were some reasons to brood over it, but say, oh, but it's fine. How could it be fine? But because they didn't just come and take me from the room. So these alternated. Some psychology, some work would have been so great, because again, with the thoughts, okay, they didn't come in the room, they didn't take me. So that we don't know. Let's not panic so much. Also true, I could have used Socrates in these works. I had the elements. I had read by then Socrates, and in fact used the fact in discussions with girls, in using this as a stratagem, as a seduction technique, introducing the fact that whenever there was something, how about that, or how is, I don't know, like Socrates said that he was considered the wisest man in antiquity, declared so by the Oracle of Delphi, because he never said he knows what he doesn't know. In fact, he had this habit of saying he knows that he knows nothing, which was not, he didn't mean it literally, of course, but when looking around and comparing with people who pretend to know, claim they know about this horse, that thing, and they don't, he was much more reserved. He didn't get into that thing. So, and he had this thing with death too. We shouldn't panic so much about death. So we don't know what death is. Nobody came back to tell us. So this strategy should have been planned. I don't know what will happen. And indeed, not much happened. Sidelined for a bit, packed up and sent back. But then after a while, I could get some work.